Hello everyone, this is Ryan with Roadfield Home with Ryan and Sophia. I wanted to do a introduction video of my trucking experiences, different jobs, different places that I've been in the business. And so kind of for the future videos I put out, you can kind of have a little bit of background to go with it when you're viewing those videos. So get right into it. I started out in the Navy. I was heavy equipment mechanic or construction mechanic. Went in 2003, got out in 2012 as a E6 construction mechanic first class. In the Navy, been all over the world, worked on pretty much everything you can imagine, from a chainsaw all the way up to D7, D8 dozers, cranes, trucks, Humvees, loaders, just about everything you can imagine. Before I got out of the Navy, I was at a reserve command, active duty staff up in Great Lakes, Chicago, the Navy base up there. And I was at a cargo handling battalion, so we had a lot of trucks, and the reservists that we had there, they were only in 1 weekend a month, so it kind of left me with a lot of free time. And I was looking at being a mechanic when I got out of the Navy, and a lot of the jobs that I was looking at, you had to have a Class B or Class A CDL for those jobs. So I figured, well, got all these trucks and everything here, and might as well. And there are exemptions for military personnel with driving trucks on the road. You don't, if you're in the military, active duty, and I believe reserves too. I mean, if you're on active duty orders, you don't have to have a CDL to drive trucks on the road. So I went down. I got a Illinois CDL manual. Changed my driver's license over to Illinois from Indiana, from where I was originally from, and set up my own little course in the back of our yard, up in our command yard. We had a big concrete yard for all of our trucks and everything. So I got some cones, set up the yard, practice all the skills stuff, skills assessment, test stuff, the backing, alley dock, all that type of stuff. Just set up a course and did everything, practiced it for about a week. Then I went down and took the written test. I'm one of those type of people I can read a book and usually go pass a test or do pretty well on it. But so I went down and took the written test. I came back the next day. I drove the truck and trailer down there myself. Had a day cab truck and a 40-foot flatbed. Went down to the skills testing site. Took the test, passed the skills test, did the road test, passed, and walked off my CDL without ever, going to a truck driving school or anything like that. But so after that, I got out of the Navy. I went to work for Ohio Caterpillar up in Cleveland, Ohio. Worked for them for a little while. I got a better offer from a railroad contractor. Went and worked on railroad equipment for railroad construction equipment. I worked up in Maine, Vermont, all up in the Northeast for a while with them. And after that, I worked for a Manitowoc crane dealer up in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I worked with them for about a year. Worked on cranes from 30-ton to 1,000-ton crawler cranes. And after that, we decided to move back to Ohio because we hadn't sold our house. So I came back there and was working for a concrete company that was a friend of the family. Ready mix concrete. They had the mixer trucks, and they had a lot of tractor trailers, and they had a dump truck division and all that stuff. So I was working for them as a mechanic and kind of a part-time driver, because I was one of the only mechanics at a CDL up there, so I could move the trucks around because they had 3 different locations. So I kind of got into a little bit more commercial driving with them. And I worked for them for just under 2 years, year and a half, 2 years, and just kind of got tired of working on stuff. Been doing it since I was 15 years old. I went to diesel tech, in high school, vocational school, and I've been doing it, like I said, I've been turning wrenches for, at that time, for close to 15 years, and I was just burnt out on it. So I figured I had the CDL. I started looking at companies, and kind of transition to that. I looked kind of local in my area. I'm from the Akron, Ohio area, Akron-Cleveland, Ohio area. I started looking. One that kind of stuck out was Snyder National, because they had terminals. They had one over in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, one over in Indianapolis, so it was kind of in between. Plus they had a park location down in Lodi, Ohio. So I applied with them. They hired me on as an experienced driver since I had my CDL for several years. And So I think they started me like at 42 cents a mile. I had my hazmat, doubles and triples and all that stuff too. And they gave me like 2 cents for the military expense. So I think it was like at 44 cents a mile there, and this was back in 2016, so you know, almost 3.5, 4 years ago. So it wasn't too bad a pay. Went on with them as a regional over-the-road driver, pretty much anything east of I-35, and I was doing probably $900, $1,000 a week. I mean, I picked up, you know, logbooks and all that pretty quick, and never was late, and they kept feeding me loads, and I was always running. I mean, I was doing 2,500, 3,000 miles a week, so I couldn't really complain. I kind of started looking for jobs after being there for 6 months or so. Kind of wanted to get something kind of in more. Kind of thought I wanted to be home more. And I seen YRC Freight. They had a terminal in Akron. They still do have a terminal there. And I applied with them, and I had a recruiter call me within a couple hours. And once I was out on the road at the time, when I got back home, I went in for an interview, and they hired me on the spot after I did a little road test with them. And they were paying like 54 cents a mile. It was union Teamsters job. And only thing we drove the day cabs, doubles and triples, terminal to terminal. Yet if you were out overnight, you stayed in a hotel. But pretty much the territory I was running there was from Akron over to New York, down to Charlotte, North Carolina. We did run New York City a lot. I think they have 4 different terminals up there, so I was up there quite a bit. Then over to Chicago every once in a while, down Nashville, or pretty much St. Louis. That was kind of the whole part of the country I was running with them. I stayed with them for roughly 6 months, and as I said, it was a union job, Teamsters, so seniority was a huge thing there, which I didn't really like very much, because I mean, really at the terminal I was at, we had close to 300 road drivers there, and given that, it would probably been 5, 6, 7 years before I had enough seniority where I could get like an actual bid run, as to where you would have a kind of a dedicated schedule or a start time, or a run to say from Akron to Indianapolis back 3 days a week, 4 days a week, whatever. So at the time, not having seniority, I was on what they call the extra board, to where they would just call you when your time was up, when your break was up, and you'd have to get 6 days in before you got your 58 hours, 2.5 days off. So one day you might be working days, one day you might be working nights, and this day you go here, or this. So it was all over the board, and it got really hard to plan things, even doctor's appointments, or just knowing, like, for the family when you're going to have your 2 days off. You'd think you were going to be off this Saturday or whatever, but then you might get pushed out of town, where you might sit for a day, then it pushes your days over, and so it's just kind of got to be a little tasking with not being able to plan anything with at home with the farm and family and all that. So decided that I wanted to have more control over my schedule and the money I was making. Well, at YRC, I mean, I was making really good money at YRC. Don't get me wrong there. I was usually bringing home $1,100, sometimes $1,200 a week over there, and they had 100% company paid healthcare benefits, so it was a really good package. I mean, if you want to, for a single guy, and if you didn't really have anything else going on, probably wouldn't be too bad of a place to be if you wanted the benefits and all that, and halfway decent wage. But like I said, you really don't have much of a life. So yeah, and I started looking at owner-operator opportunities, and kind of immediately went back to Snyder, since I'd worked for them, and I'd heard they'd had a pretty good load board, kind of a live, interactive type program, and they had their own truck leasing arm, SFI Trucks and Financing, I believe it's called. So I applied with them. I got hired on the owner-operator side, then they kind of pushed me over to SFI to get a truck, and I went ahead and talked to a specialist over there, account specialist, whatever you want to call them. 20 miles. I wanted a Kenworth or a Peterbilt, and wanted a 13-speed manual. Didn't want an automatic. And he had one down in Phoenix. It had like 50,000. I think it had 48,000 miles on it. I put $3,000 down on it, and my payment was extremely high. I mean, I was paying $985 a week for that truck. Which part of that, out of $985, I think $170 a month or a week went into a maintenance fund. That was your money It went on your 1099, so you pay taxes on it at the end of the year too. But that was for, I guess, kind of protect them and protect you, so you just wasn't running around and running. And if you had a major breakdown, you had money, or if they took the truck back or you turned it in and there was all the stuff that needed to be repaired, they have access to that money as well to fix anything that needs to be fixed. I do all my own maintenance and everything and repairs, which you'll see in some of our other videos. So I never did. It was kind of a hassle to pull that money out, so I didn't use it. So I just left it sit in there, and if I ever had any huge major problem, I had that money sitting there. I used it for steer tires, I think, once or twice. But that was really it, because it was convenient to use the account and get the discounts on your Bridgestones, Michelin's, whatever, if you're in it through the Snyder account. But kind of going back to the Snyder side, that was the SFI side. But on the Snyder side, like I said, they had an online load board. As a live board, stuff pops up and you can look at it, then you can click, you can book the load, and once you hit the button, it's your load, and then you go do it. So that was really nice. You didn't have to talk to anybody. But the problem with that was a lot of people that's been there for a while, and Snyder has a lot of bigger accounts, so they know then the loads are always the same. A lot of them are the same scheduled loads. So you had a lot of guys that are experienced, they're in the area, and they knew when the load was gonna pop, and they'd be on there waiting. And like sometimes I'd gotten alerts for loads, and I had gotten on the load board within like 5 or 10 seconds, and the load was already gone. So that was kind of frustrating, because people that knew when the loads were going to hit definitely had an advantage. And the other problem was you might try to book 3 or 4 loads out, because it was mainly short haul stuff, which you'll find again in some of the other videos. I don't like doing short haul, and I don't like running east of I-35. I like to get out west. I like to do bigger, longer 2,000, 3,000 mile long trips. Is what I've found have been more successful with, and it's more peaceful to me, just being able to get out on the road and not have to worry about anything for a couple of days. But so yeah, to really keep the money rolling in with them, you'd have to book a couple loads out. If you didn't book out, if you were just trying to book the same day, it'd be hard to really know where you're going, and you might have to sit for a day in between. And if you're sitting, you're losing money. And if you got almost a $4,000 a month truck payment, and then your tags and insurance and all that good stuff, I mean, it's a lot of money to be sitting. But the problem with booking out 3 or 4 loads is a lot of times you'd have the one in the middle would cancel, then you'd have a 500 or 600 mile gap, then you'd have to either cancel all the other loads and start all over, then you're back to the point where you're sitting again. So if for somebody that's not experienced and you kind of want a little bit of oversight, they have the BOAs, I think they were called, business owner advisors. It's kind of like a DBL type sort of thing, and so they kind of help you out if you can get a hold of them. I mean, I think they're probably kind of overtasked. I mean, they were at the time when I was there. It seemed like they had more drivers than they could handle. But I think I was running about 6 days a week there, kind of doing like a big circle out of Ohio, then maybe over to Pennsylvania, then down to the Carolinas, then kind of came back up around, in a 5-6 day rotation was what I was doing over there. And after all the expenses, I mean, I might have been bringing home $1,200 to $1,500, so it just really wasn't what I was looking for. And Snyder, they wanted you to go in and do, like, every 3 months, go and do these safety courses, and you'd have to go to one of their operating centers. It wasn't something you could do at the time. It may have changed now, but this was back in 2017, by the way. But you couldn't do these courses on your own computer. You'd have to go there. So you might have to drive 5 hours out of the way to go to an operating center and take some course that took half an hour, and then they wouldn't pay you for it, even after you deviated and went to one of their centers to do it. Then they had I know if your truck had the on guard thing on the radar on the front like mine did, and the traction control, like if you had a tire brake loose going around a curve, it would throw a critical event, and then you get a message a half hour later saying, no, you need to stop and call them and talk about this. And it was just kind of ridiculous. I mean, even if, I think one time I was on some ice pulling out of a truck stop driveway. I was going like 5 miles an hour, and one of my tires spun and it activated the traction control, and it throws up that critical event thing. So then I got to call them, you know, and you're on hold for half an hour. And then you talk, then they act like they want to interrogate you, like you almost caused a wreck or something. So it was kind of got to be ridiculous. So I started looking at other options, and I seen Landstar kind of stuck out because I want to be able to book my own loads. I don't want a dispatcher. I don't want to work for a dispatcher. So I mean, that kind of limits my options. So I got to looking at Landstar and heard a lot of good things. And I had talked to my over at SFI Trucks, who had gotten the truck through. You were allowed to take the truck to other carriers if you wanted to. You had to pay. Since I already had a deposit down and I hadn't missed any of my payments or anything, I didn't have to put down an additional deposit. I know some other people that I've known at SFI, for some reason or another, they had to put down an additional deposit to take their truck somewhere else. But I was talking to my account manager at SFI, and I told him, I was like, you know, I don't like this deal at Snyder anymore. You know, I'm thinking about just turning the truck in. And he's like, a lot of guys like Landstar, and he kept telling me that. And then finally I applied with him, and it took a long time to get in. It took like 6 weeks from the time that I applied to finally get into Landstar. And started with them, and went to orientation, and did pretty well there. I mean, it was nice. I mean, it's a little bit different. They have a load board that's online, but you don't actually they have a phone number for each of the 8 individual. It's kind of agent driven. So the agents will go out and get the business. They'll post the freight on the load board. Then you call the agent. But their load board's pretty powerful as far as searches go. I mean, you could set up as many searches as you want at the same time. So I mean, I could be looking for a load for today, you know, and I could get a load to California. Then I could be looking for a load back. Then I could already be on top of that. I could already be looking for my next, you know, when I think I'm going to be home, and you know, spend my home time. And I could be looking for another load back out west or something all at once. So you can really, I think the key is to be out ahead. You know, if you kind of know where you're going to be before, you know, because the other drivers out here, they're, you know, they can be friends and everything, but they're your competition. I mean, you're competing with another driver for those loads. So if you know where you're going to be in a week and how much time you're going to have, and you see that load pop, and you can grab it before somebody else does, then you're that much money ahead. But yeah, I had a pretty good deal. The last year I was with them, I did about 190,000 1099, and you know, probably I think we figured we were right at about 80,000 after expenses, even with that large truck payment. So I mean, that was 2018, so that was a pretty good year with them. But kind of got last year, I want to say about February of 2019. Freight wasn't that well. My wife and I took a vacation to we went over to China. We went to Hong Kong, Taiwan, Macau, and China. And this was in December. We were going to be gone for about 2.5 weeks, and I had saved up. I think I had like $12,000 cash in the bank to cover all my payments and everything while I was gone. I thought I was going to be good. We got plenty of money, and you know, it wasn't going to be an issue when I got back. Get right back to work and not be a problem. So we go on vacation, we come back, and I was already looking at load. I think I had already booked a load while I was still in Hong Kong or something. I seen a load come up, so I already had a load for when I got back home. And so I got back home and went out on my first load. And the time I got my first paycheck back, I mean, it had been about 3.5 weeks before I had gotten paid. And all of that whole $12,000 or so that I'd said, it was gone. It was all gone. You know, paying all my expenses, my bills, and a little bit that we had to pay for on our trip. So it was kind of stressful, you know, coming back. Then, you know, that time of year, freight's kind of slow. So it just got to be kind of tasking. I was kind of looking to kind of get rid of that truck payment. Was a lot, so I was kind of looking to get rid of the truck payment. So I started with SFI. When I was there, I don't know if it's still the same, they did have a walk away. It's not a walk away lease, but they have like a walk away clause where you pay a $5,000 termination fee, and that can come out of your maintenance fund. I had like $9,000 in my maintenance fund at the time. So that's what I was kind of looking at. I was like, I'm just going to go back, get a local driving job, and get rid of this truck and kind of get out of the stress of it. So I started applying for a couple places. I applied for USF Holland, which is actually owned by YRC. Applied for a local job over there, and got hired with them. And then that's when I turned in. I called SFI and sent them an email. Just so I had a document of everything. I called the guy and then sent the email. So I'm just looking for something local, kind of tired of all the stress, having to deal with that large payment. And you know, because you always got in the back of your mind, you know, you got to make that payment. You're worried about somebody in the truck stops hitting your truck. I mean, it's just a lot of. Then on top of that, you know, you're just trying to run your business. So yeah, and I ended up turning the truck in, took it down to Charlotte. A lot of people you'll see people talking about SFI like, oh, I didn't get my money, or it took full. I don't know what they're talking about. I had a pretty good experience. Like I said, I turned in my truck on a Tuesday, I think, and they took the $5,000 out of my maintenance fund and they direct deposited the remaining $4,000 or so. I had it before the end of the week, and they sent me a letter, said paid in full, and you're done with us. And you know, I could probably go back there if I wanted. If I did want to get another truck, I was, you know, my rep, you know, said I was welcome to come back if I wanted to. So I don't know what a lot of the other stories here from people having bad experiences. I don't know what they went through or what they did or what the circumstances was. But as far as that, you know, I got all my money back that they owed me. I didn't get cheated or anything like that. So that was it. So I went to work for USF Holland as a local pickup and delivery driver, and that lasted 2 weeks, I think. It was that is a completely different animal, because you go in again. That was another union job. Didn't have any seniority. They were starting me. I think I was starting at 11 o'clock in the mornings when I started. You'd go in, they'd have you go out and run for 6 or 7 hours, but not doing pickups and deliveries. So the thing is, you have to go in, you have to load your own truck on the dock. They'll give you all your freight bills. You go out there and load it. Then you got your list of deliveries. You go out, start doing your deliveries, and then they start throwing pickups at you. So you might be on one side of town doing a delivery, then you run over to the other side of town to do your next delivery. Then you'll get a pickup to go right back to the same place you just on the other side of town that you dropped off at. So it's pretty crazy, and you didn't even have time to sit down and eat anything. I mean, it was pretty action packed. Then after you finished up your driving, you'd come back about I was getting back like at 7-8 o'clock at night, and you had to stay and work the forklifts. You know, the freight that they bring in from the over the road guys, you had to take that all off the trucks, put it on the dock, then put it back on other trailer if it was going through, or for guys in the morning or whatever. Or I have it staged on the dock for the guys that came in earlier in the morning, the local guys. And sometimes it might be there till, I know a couple of times I was there till after 1 o'clock in the morning. So it was definitely going over, you know, legal hours as far as the logging goes. But it got to, I was driving 45 minutes to work down there, and so the time I got up, went there, worked all day, came home. I typically wasn't leaving until at least midnight. So the time I got back home was usually 1 o'clock. You'd have time to eat something, take a shower, go to sleep, get back up and have an hour in the morning and go right back to work. And that was 5 days a week. And I mean, again, it had the company paid health care, 401k, pretty good benefits and all that. And the 2 weeks I did work there, I think I brought home $1,100 or $1,200, you know, each week. So there was good money in it, but you know, one of the guys told me, he's like, oh, well, at least you're home every night. And I'm like, well, I would be better off just being on the road. I mean, because you're home, but you're not home. So it's just kind of a tease, what I thought. But after that, I started looking at some other things, because I knew that wasn't going to work out, because if I'm going to be working that much, I might as well just be on the road, you know. So I looked at Lowe's. Lowe's was looking at home hardware or mechanic, hardware store, lumberyard, whatever you want to call them. They were looking for a flatbed driver for their flatbed delivery truck, and applied for that and went in, did an interview, and got hired pretty quick. I drove for them for 4 or 5 months over this past summer. Then there was a lot of talk that they were going to contract out their delivery services. They weren't paying me a whole lot there. I was making like right at $20 an hour, and I usually didn't. Once you went out and did your deliveries, when I got back to the store, they'd give you the option to stay in the store and get your hours, which I had no desire of doing, working in the store. I'm not really a customer service type person and don't really want to be in there doing all that, so I would usually opt out to leave. So I was usually only getting 30 to 35 hours a week there, but I got a lot of stuff done at home over the summer, a lot of projects done, which probably some of the other videos you'll see some of those projects. But so that was nice that kind of have the summer off and take it easy, but then I kind of started looking at the finances and I'm like, you know, I'm still spending like I was at Landstar, you know, bringing home $2,000 or $3,000 a week when now I'm making $600 or $700 a week. So a lot of debt piled up, and kind of start thinking like we're gonna have to do something different here. Kind of at the same time, my dad is an owner operator as well. He bought a new truck, and he had his older 2013 Kenworth T660. He was kind of, even if he's gonna sell it or trade it in, and my wife were kind of like, hey, why don't we just work something out and buy that truck from him? So I called him up and said, hey, what if I just take, because he still had a note on it, I said, what if I just take over the payments on that, and you know, that way you're not taking a beating on trading it in, and because they probably wouldn't have offered him, you know, on a trade-in what he owed on it anyways. So he said, yeah, that sounds good to me, and I started looking at other carriers. I was looking at going back to Landstar. I had a good experience there. I don't have anything bad to say about them. I made good money. So I applied with them, and I was ready to go. You know, I was ready to get back to work, and it was taking a really long time. And I had just left there in February, so I'd only been gone for 4 or 5 months, maybe 6 months I'd been gone. And you know, and I had gotten, you know, a rehire recommendation when I left there, and it had been like almost 3 weeks, and they still hadn't got me ready to go to orientation. And so I started looking at other carriers that kind of had the same setup, you know, the same load board and self-dispatch as Landstar did. And I found Mercer Transportation out of Louisville, Kentucky. So I applied with them. Sound like a pretty good company. They pay a little bit more, but at Landstar they pay 65% plus the fuel surcharge, and you get to use the trailer for free. Here at Mercer they pay 75% surcharge, but you have to pay right around $600 a month for the trailer rental, which I'll go over it in another video, but it actually kind of works out better in your favor. But I applied with them, I got in, they were ready to bring me down in a couple of days. I think in 2 or 3 days I was all approved and hired by them. So I said, you know what the heck, I already know what Landstar is, I'll give Mercer a try. And so I went down, my dad lives down in Mississippi, I flew down there, picked the truck up, you know, brought it back up home, had a few little things to fix on it before I put the truck into service. And September 20th or so, I think, I have to look at the exact date, is when I went to, no, it was a little bit earlier than that. It was right at the beginning of September. I went down to Louisville, Kentucky, and I went to orientation and started with Mercer, and that's where I'm at now. I'm going to do a video here pretty soon with the differences between Mercer and Landstar, and kind of weighing both, because I'm at the point where I'm kind of thinking about going back to Landstar at this point, but that'll be determined. But again, that's kind of my history with kind of going as a mechanic from the Navy, as you know, in mechanic field, and kind of transition to truck driving. I know you hear a lot of truck drivers that kind of go the other way into the mechanic field, but yeah, it's just you do that for 15 years. You're laying in the rain, the mud, and cold, and getting greasy all the time. And some jobs pay well, some don't. Even with the good paying jobs, you usually got to be out on the road for, you know, a couple days or weeks at a time anyways. So I kind of like to be in a warm truck and just driving. But again, hope you like this video. I'll probably, a couple of things I talked about, I'll probably break down into more detailed videos, more specific on some of the topics that I talked about. But again, hope you enjoyed, and stay tuned for our next video. Thanks. Bye.